morning. I'm Judith Jolma. I'm the founder of Sophia Homeschool, and we teach here teacher training to homeschool parents. And part of that, a big part of that, is knowing the child. We have to know and understand childhood development in order to be effective educators. And something beautiful happened in my home just a couple weeks ago that I've been meaning to come live and to share with you about what happened and how this was only able to come about because of a solid understanding that I was given about childhood development. So let's just dive into what happened. So I have a 7th grade child, and as we enter 7th grade, of course, as you know, this is 12-year-old, we are just hard plummet right into the 3rd plane of development, adolescence. Oh, the dread adolescence. And this, my 7th grader, has always been respectful, responsible, and diligent in his work, never given me a moment of trouble. And I began to think, adolescence with this guy is going to be a breeze because we have such a solid relationship. He's dependable, and I think that this is going to be fine. Well, of course, as the months have gone on in this age 12, I'm starting to see more and more of a transition into adolescence. And this was highlighted in how he was doing his schoolwork. I gave him a very, very difficult class this year, pre-algebra. And I signed him up for a class to do because it's so difficult. It's outside my wheelhouse. And as a homeschooler, I believe that there are many things, just like if you were going to do a home renovation, there are some things that you would need to hire out. If you're not skilled in electrical work, you'd want to hire an electrician, right? Well, I'm not particularly skilled in algebra, so I hired out and I got a tutor for him to work through algebra. And this class is really hard. And it's challenged him in many, many ways. But what surprised me was that for the first time, he began cutting corners. Like not being able to say to me, Mom, this is hard and I don't want to do it. I don't know how to do it. I would come to him the next day and say, all right, let's see your homework. How did you do? And he'd say, I didn't do it. You didn't do it? What? That's not like you. You mean you didn't even try? No, I kind of got distracted. Okay. And so, all right. So I see that the day before you actually did your work. Let's take a look. Now, were you checking your work? Because your teacher said to check your work as you went. No, I didn't check my work. You didn't check your work? Okay, let me check your work for you. All of these problems are wrong. Did you know that? No, I wasn't checking my work. All right, let's try to unravel it. Let's try to see where the problem happened, what you're not understanding, why they went so wrong. So show me your work, because you've been taught how to show your work. No, I just did it in my head. So you see, as we went through, every little bit of instruction that I had given him, he wasn't doing. This wasn't a problem of him actually not understanding the work. This was of a problem of him saying, I don't want to do it, and I'm not going to apply myself. And so instead of allowing the conflict to arise right there, I stepped away, and I spent a couple of days considering what's going on. This is not like him. What's happening. And I was so blessed to have the 4 planes of development brought back to my mind. And I remembered, of course. All right, so a child who is birth to age 6 is in one plane of development. And this is a plane of creating, of self-creation. He's learning this mother tongue, he's learning his physical skill, he's growing, he's transforming, he has this external sense of order. And the 2nd plane, between the ages of 6 and 12, you have childhood. And this is where the child, kind of that external growth slows down and they become much more stable, much more healthy. They lose their baby fat and they begin to become more of a little adult, really, very responsible. And this rapid intellectual growth occurs. But then, about between age 12 and age 18, you have adolescence. And in adolescence, it's actually a parallel plane with the toddler years. So, if you have a 2-year-old and you have a 13-year-old, you have the same child. They're going through the same things. And then, of course, when between 18 and 24, you have the young adult, and that's a parallel plane with childhood. You have this, rapid internal growth and this academic ability. The brain is really ready for academics. So I began thinking about who this older child was when he was in that first plane of development, knowing that they were parallel planes. And I started putting the pieces together. Right, okay. So what happens when you enter this adolescent time, the brain physically begins pruning itself. Anything that was not, the synapses, the connections that were not made, the brain thinks it's not needed anymore. And there is this massive pruning in the brain that happens, and you get this brain fog, right? And this need for independence that the child has when they're in childhood, it goes away. There's a natural instinct, a natural drive that the child has to learn things and to grow intellectually, in the stimulation that they need, intellectual stimulation. All of a sudden, because the brain is pruning itself, it no longer has that instinctive drive, this stimulation. So if he's not naturally getting algebra, there's no internal drive to compel him to get better at it. In fact, adolescence is physically the worst time in the whole of the human life for academic work. It really is. Because it's like, moms, you know how hard it is to think when you're pregnant, right? To do really hard mental work when your whole body resources are going toward an external physical development. And adolescents and toddlers are going through very much the same metamorphosis of the body. All of the brain's resources are going through this change to change the body as they're transforming from child to adult. And the adolescence is when this is happening. And so to give a child a massive amount of academic work is really just unkind, and it's not cooperating with nature. So as I started to realize this, right. First of all, if a task is hard, he doesn't have the internal drive anymore to make him want to get better at it. Secondly, it's more difficult than it's ever been. This is the worst time for him. And this is also very discouraging for him because he didn't practice as a child. These elements of character development start to reveal what he now wasn't actually practicing. He isn't second nature to him now, and so he's pruning it off. So perseverance, endurance, conquering hard challenges, being friendly with error, all of these things that maybe were not perfected in childhood, now those connections weren't made, and it's more difficult for him to do them at this period of life. So I explained it all to him. I sat him down and I said, hey, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you where you are on the plane of development. And I told him everything that I just explained here. I explained it to him. I said, I know, I get it. And this peacefulness started to come over him. Like, Mom gets me. Mom knows this is more difficult. Mom knows that I'm not motivated at all. Mom knows that my mind just is not clicking in gear right now, and I don't know why. It's really not a choice of mine. So, here's the resolution. Understanding what he is going through in adolescence, I don't have to do what the school system does. The school system is not based on childhood development. It's not based on science, the way the brain learns. I can apply my homeschooling techniques to how nature, how God designed the human person to learn and to cooperate with the planes of development. I said, that's what I've done for you, buddy. That's what I've done. I've taken you in this time where in all of your life, this is the worst possible time for you to do academic work. And I've given you 2 subjects this year. 2 subjects, and that's all. The first subject is he wants to start his own business. I said, okay, you start your own business. He's an entrepreneur. I don't know where he gets that from. He wants to start his own business, so that is his schoolwork this year. And he has to do pre-algebra. That's it. Now, of course, we still have rich conversations about history and about science and about other things, but he's not tested, he's not graded. He doesn't have any work that he has to apply himself to on anything else. 2 subjects. I said, I'm cooperating with your nature. Secondly, I know you no longer have the internal drive that's compelling you to do the difficult things. You have brain fog, you don't have any motivation, you haven't built the character in areas that maybe I should have been more diligent in helping you with before, but nevertheless, here we are. You are no longer able to compel yourself from the inside. And so I have to, as your friend and as your coach, as your parent, as your teacher, I have to provide an external motivation for you. And unfortunately, that can look in many ways like punishment. It's not punishment. It's the support that you need, the braces that you need to help you to continue to do what you need to do in this time of life. I've given you a lighter load, but there are some things you still need to do. And so these braces, these motivations, external motivations are going to look a lot like this. They're going to look like no Minecraft this weekend. They're going to look like you're going to write down 1,000 times, I do my work with diligence, until you rewire that mental pathway that says, I don't give up, I persevere when I don't want to. Okay? It's an external motivation. We're rewiring his mindset. It's going to feel many, many times like punishment. I said it's not punishment. This is external motivation to help you do what you need to do when you don't have the internal drive. Now, I waited a little while to tell you about this conversation because I wanted to see how it was going to go. That was about 3 weeks ago that we had this conversation. And since then, he actually has applied himself into his algebra work and is doing so much better. Even this morning, he got up at 7 o'clock, he fixed himself a pancake breakfast, and he sat down right away to do his homework. You see, now he knows that I'm on his side. I'm working with his nature. I understand his struggle, and we're working together. Now, this could never have happened unless we understood the planes of development, the development of the child and the human mind and the way people learn. And this is why it's so important to know this. It's important to know this when you have a toddler, to cooperate with their nature. It's important to know this when you have children and to be able to give them the mental and intellectual stimulation that they need and the opportunity to explore and have social freedom. And then as you have adolescence, this isn't rebellion. This isn't selfishness, this isn't laziness. You have to understand what's happening in the brain to be able to cooperate with it. This is God's design, and God's design is good. And that is what's at the heart of teacher training for homeschool parents. Have a wonderful afternoon.